welcome back to the Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, yes. Very well indeed. Looking forward to discussing Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1976. Six? Eight. Oh, that was a guess. I don't have it in front of me. We have covered another. We covered Nosferatu. Mm-hmm. Both versions of Nosferatu at the same time. We're not doing that today. No. But because these films are quite different, it's not quite as easy as that. Nosferatu and Nosferatu, very similar films, aside from one not having sound.
So the core Plot of those movies are very similar.
These are very different in many ways. But one of in my opinion, best remakes, this film. This film is great as a remake.
Yeah, as I said, we did The Fly too, so...
Yes, another one that's very different, and a very good remake. So,
yeah, both great remakes.
Yeah. This has always been a favourite of mine ever since I saw it. I love the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think is a wonderful film. This film, I think it updates everything in the perfect way, because Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 50s version, it's all like, those fucking commie plants coming here. We got to get rid of these commie plants pretending, it's all about that Cold War paranoia. Mm-hmm. But here you kind of move into that like, we want to create a dystopian, it's very dystopian and very 70s in its...
it's very sort of, there's two things really. It's very like talking about consumerism and the consumer. I mean, Nimoy has a whole speech about the family unit and
he does
of normal lives, as it were. And there's also a thing about, I think, the sort of the last gasp death of the hippie movement. It's the sort of
yes, there is that as well. That kind of you will conform.
By 78, most of the hippies like moved on or conformed, got families and jobs and So it has those sort of two elements that which serve to make it a good update for the.
I think it updates the themes of the film tremendously well. And I think it is. In my opinion, it's up there with John Carpenter's The Thing and Nosferatu as just those rare instances when a remake is superb. Yeah. It very rarely happens in my experience. But there are.
The question is, how well do you remember the other two?
The other two remakes?
Yes.
I have never seen the Daniel Craig one.
Oh, okay.
I don't think. I know it exists. It's just called Invasion, right?
Yes, it is just called Invasion.
I've not seen it. The other one, what is the other one? Do I even remember the other one?
It is just called Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I think. And it was a 90... Ooh, now
is it a TV movie or something? Or
No, it's got... what was her blooming name? Oh, Christ, I'm completely missing it now. It was in the 90s, and it was... Let me see. Is it somewhere? No, not the host.
It's on the internet somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I don't remember it.
No, it's the... So, the 90s one, I've got a vague memory of, I think it's Jennifer Tilly being really creepy once she's been taken over, and she does the whole scream thing. And I'm pretty sure that's got... Now I'm going to forget his name. That's great. What a great start we're having today.
This is why people tune in, Matt. This is it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. My terrible note keeping.
I love it. See, I was talking about this the other day. I said I really hate those podcasts that are obviously rehearsed and scripted, and they can't be seen to not know something. I like that about this show. It's a pub chat. We forget things. This is how people talk in real life when they're not scripting themselves. This is it.
It's actually just called Body Snatchers. It was 93.
Oh, okay.
And it's got Gabrielle Anwar in it, Billy Worth, Meg Tilly, and Forrest Whitaker.
That does. Now you've said Forrest Whitaker.
And it's set on an army base.
Yeah, I think I have seen that, but I have only the vaguest of memories of that.
Yeah, exactly. Mine too. I vaguely remember Forrest Whitaker in a uniform.
Yes.
And I certainly remember Meg Tilly being the screechy, pointy one.
And yeah, that does ring a vague bell.
And Invasion.
Yeah, no, that one I know I haven't seen. Because I remember seeing the trailers for it and just being like,
That's like 2007. Now I know I've seen that as well. And that's Nicole Kidman and
Daniel Craig.
And I have a vague thing of them being somewhere like a petrol station or something and taking loads of speed.
Right.
So taking something to keep awake. And that one's sort of... I think the invasion itself is slightly different. I think it's more of I think it's a fungus that takes over the person.
Yeah, because here it's quite different from... Yeah, I think each iteration has its own different method. But yeah, I really like the method we get here, actually. Well,
and apparently, I've not read the book, but the book has a sort of... apparently, the pod people only have a 5-year lifespan, and
okay,
usually take over and move on. But this time, they're sort of shocked by the human response to their...
the resistance.
Yeah, and apparently they leave willingly.
Like sod this.
But they leave some behind, and I think humanity destroys the ones that are left behind.
Right.
So the book ends differently from all the movie versions.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But yeah, the second two, my memory of them is very, very hazy, and I was probably never going to watch them again, to be honest.
No, I think I love the original. And I love this remake, and I'm happy with that. It's fine.
I do have a love for, not quite the same, but similar, The Faculty.
Do you know, my friend was watching that the other night, and I commented, I think The Faculty is the most 1998 movie ever made. It's unbelievably 1998. It's cool, though. It is a cool movie. But it is, it's so 1998.
I watched it
from the opening song, it is so 1998. Yeah. From that moment
I watched
onwards,
it in the cinema, and at the time it was like, this is
the coolest thing ever.
Movie ever.
Yeah.
And afterwards, you're like, this movie is so try hard.
But it is amazing. Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
It's a really good, I guess, sort of update of the alien invasion sort of thing. I enjoy it anyway. It's very silly, and it's got some really fun comedy moments in it as well, which I really like.
Yeah. Well, shall we get into this film?
Yeah, let's do it.
We kind of open on this strange alien planet. We get the awesome music kick in, and we see the kind of spores, I guess you could call them.
Almost like sort of foam.
Yeah, it's like slow motion smoke almost in a weird way. Or like when they make like cotton candy, but like in reverse, if that makes sense. Like slowed down and in reverse, you kind of see it all kind of taking off. And you get the great kind of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, title as they float into space. And then it
is a very 70s title.
So many 70s titles are just traveling through space.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big theme in the 70s, from Superman onwards, I think.
Yes.
But so we see the spores kind of heading through space as the titles come up. Really effective sequence. I always get confused as to how the spores survive re-entry, but I guess we just kind of accept that they do.
Yeah. My guess is that they're light enough that they
maybe
reach.
Yeah.
Velocity, I don't know.
No. But ultimately, they eventually enter the atmosphere and end up coming down during a rainstorm in San Francisco. And we kind of see that they start to take over and start growing amongst the plants on Earth.
Yeah, and there's a really cool shot of the one that's on the leaf that you see the little tendrils start growing out.
That's the one that Elizabeth picks up, right? Or is no, it's not. It's not. It's an earlier shot, isn't it? That where you just see the tendrils. Yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, we do see the like you said the pink flower, which is kind of the telltale.
And I think they do a pretty good job of making it slightly sort of the paranoia takes over quite early, because you get.
I love the priest on the swing.
Yeah, it's Robert Duvall,
but it's creepy as fuck. It's creepy at first because you're like, that's a weird, creepy priest. But then you're like, oh, wait, is he already a pod person? Like, there's something weird with that guy. Like, immediately, I love it. It's so good.
Not only that, you've got the teacher and the kids.
Yes.
Which, that already heightens the, it's, it's like a bunch of kids. That's not good already. They're all, like, dancing these leaves and things. And the teacher gives, is it Elizabeth? Yes. Yeah, Elizabeth, a real weird stink eye as she walks off.
Yeah.
With a sample of the flower. Yeah. And you think, oh, is she a?
Well, you wonder, but then also I would have thought it would just be like, well, you're just kind of forwarding their plans by taking these things home. But I guess maybe it was intended for someone else or intended for a different target, and she's moving it, and that kind of annoys them maybe.
Apparently, Robert Duvall worked with Philip Kaufman, the director, previously.
Right.
And he was just in the neighborhood. And apparently he paid him with a jacket.
He was just on the swings at this time.
Yeah, he was just on the swings in full priest gear.
Just hanging around.
Apparently he got paid an Eddie Bauer jacket, whatever one of those is.
That sounds like a sport game thing.
Yeah.
I don't understand sport game.
But they're just jackets. I don't know.
Yeah. So we're introduced to Elizabeth, played by Brooke Adams. And she finds one of the pod plants, and obviously noticing that it's odd, she takes it with her back to her asshole boyfriend Jeffrey, who and again this is great because the movie sets up immediately what a piece of shit this guy is, and it sets you up for the switch. He's so disinterested in her, he doesn't care, he just cares about the sport. He's like no interest whatsoever in her botany, or her work, or anything really. He's just like, I'm watching the basketball, because he hasn't even got headphones on. He's like properly like invested, and like I mean, I guess he does kiss her when she comes in and stuff. It's not like he's completely.
It does show you that he does have passion.
Yes, that's the thing. He's got passion for the game, passion for her, at least physically.
Yeah.
But he's disinterested in her work, and kind of, he has his passions. They're not her passions, which does two things. Obviously, one, it sets up the change when he becomes passionless, but it also sets up this love story, this unrequited love story that we have going on between Matthew and Elizabeth, where she's in this relationship with this guy. Matthew obviously realizes this guy's a bit of an asshole, and there's all of that going on. And there's like, is this love unrequited? Because it's quite clear that Matthew has feelings for Elizabeth the whole way through the movie. They have the moment with the wine in a bit, but we'll get to that.
Well, I mean, even the sort of when he's cooking the stir fry and feeding her bits and things, it's like that's is that normal behavior for friends? I don't know.
I don't know. They do get a bit close.
Yeah.
With the wine and stuff. There's a bit in a minute. Well, we'll get to it, but he is cooking. He gives her like a massive piece of pepper. It's like, did you even cut these peppers up?
No, and it's raw too. It hasn't been cooked properly yet.
I know. It's like, eat this raw pepper. Anyway. She identifies it, or she can't identify it. She basically decides it must be a crossbreed of two species of plant.
A graft, I think she says it is.
Yeah, like Grex or something. Yeah.
She's reading from this book, and it says, they grow on devastated. They can grow on devastated ground, and you think, ooh, nice,
interesting.
There's a sentence for you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Matthew Donald Sutherland has turned up to to this French restaurant. Is one of my favorite scenes of the movie. Yeah. I love this scene so much.
They do a really quite often.
This is one of the few scenes of levity in this movie.
It is, but even saying that, quite often Matt is bathed in shadow.
Yep.
He is like a walking, talking noir movie for most of this film.
He really is. You also get the staff here, because obviously he's from the health department. He's inspecting the unsanitary conditions. So he's come in, and we get this wonderful exchange between him and the manager.
Yeah.
Where he basically says, "This is a rat turd," and the guy's like, "It's a caper." He's like, "Okay, if it's a caper, eat it."
Yeah.
But the whole time you do have the staff looking over, and the way they look again could just be, well, he's a health inspector in our bloody place, and he's or it could be again pod people. The way they look, they're just looking like there's a disturbance, and you get that a lot with a lot of the incidental and extras in
just people in the background looking over.
Yes, the way they look is always unsure. So Matthew,
a lot of the crowd scenes, I think it's just normal people looking, and
the thing is, normal people
managed to make it look so sinister.
Well, normal people tend to look at the camera unless you tell them not to look at the camera. So it's very easy to get those kind of shots if you just let people do it, awkwardly stare at camera.
And we get this wonderful shot when he knocks on the door of the restaurant.
Oh, you're
looking through the peephole on the door, and you get that fisheye shot of him as he leans, right into the camera. It sets up quite early the sort of of the vision thing of the everything you're seeing is possibly weird or strange, and you get a lot of frosted glass scenes and stuff as well.
Yeah, it's wonderfully shot, all of it. But yeah, that fisheye lens thing is great through the spy hole. So Matthew obviously determines it probably is a rat turd. He takes it as evidence. Clearly Matthew has never watched Roadhouse and brought his real car to this this restaurant, which is ended with a wine bottle being lodged in his windshield.
And I love the way the guys, the two like I don't know whether they're just chefs or whether
I guess,
They're just stood there smoking, staring at him.
And he no-sells it, which I love. Yeah. He's like, no, I'm not going to be intimidated. He doesn't even get out to deal with it. He just drives away. And he's like, okay. He's not going to let them get a rise out of him. He's going to remain cool and cold to the situation.
And you get some amazing shots of the city while they're driving around in this.
You get some really good shots the whole way through, because even when the spores arrive, you get some really nice shots.
Yeah, and it's one of those sort of, San Francisco hasn't looked this good since Bullet sort of things, is it? It does have there's some great shots of just them stood in windows.
Yes.
With buildings behind them, and I forget what the big spiky tower is called in San Francisco.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
That looms over them a number of times.
It does, yeah.
And apparently, it was that building was owned by a company that owned United Artists, who distributed the movie.
Oh, okay.
So they obviously wanted to put that forward. It's like, the company that owns this film, they're dodgy.
Yeah. So once he's home, Matthew calls Elizabeth. It's like ludicrous o'clock by this point. And he basically asks her to come in early, and she's like, I'm not coming in early. And you start to get a feel for their relationship.
Yeah, the first thing she says basically is, I'm not coming in early.
Yeah, she's like, I already know what this is.
And he's just completely ignoring her and carrying on talking about, what's going on, how is it? And she's like, I'm not coming in. I am not coming in early.
Now,
and then she's like, I'm coming in early.
Yeah, she relents, obviously. Of course she relents. So she ends up going to bed. Jeffrey's already there. And she kind of cuddles into him. Now, by the time she wakes up in the morning, he's already up. He's already up and he's already stood there. He's already dressed and he's awkwardly staring at her.
She put the flower in.
Oh, that's right. She puts it next to the yes.
Yeah, it was on his bedside.
She killed him basically.
Yeah.
Accidentally, but
accidentally, but yeah.
Yeah, she manslaughtered him with a plant.
I mean, technically, as they point out, it's not really death.
Well, it's death of personality, though, isn't it? It's death of the knowledge is retained, but all emotion is purged, and you know, again, it's a great analogy. It's great. So the next morning she's kind of surprised to find him kind of stood there,
fully dressed and
suited and booted as well.
Yeah, suited and booted and sweeping up something that looks like a spill or some sort of...
Well, yeah, the glass presumably has broken, and he immediately takes it out, and she looks out the window and she late it a little bit, and she sees that he's already out with the bin men, and the bin men kind of turn up a few times in this movie. Ominous bin men.
They're everywhere in this movie. I love that you've got this sort of almost constant sort of
dread.
You know, piles of the dust that are in the back of these rubbish trucks.
Which obviously we learn what they are later, but at the moment you're just like, oh, that's weird.
You get sort of weird. They don't seem to be talking to each other, but they look like they are.
Yes, they look like they should be, but they're not.
And as she's watching them, one of the bin man points up at one of the buildings at one point. I don't think anything's said between them, but they sort of look, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And I think does she get a phone call that sort of... Oh no, the clock goes off, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, she's late. So she heads into work. On the way in though, we get some great shots where she's walking in, but you just get in the background, you'll get like someone's running.
Mm-hmm.
Then they look concerned running. You know, there's great, again, incidental kind of people in the background shots. Very Shaun of the Dead-y, you know, where I think Shaun of the Dead took some inspiration from this, where you've got that, like, she's just going about her normal day, but around her, there are these things that she just probably doesn't think anything of, but they're all hints that something is wrong.
Yeah.
So she gets into work. She apologizes to Matthew for being late, even though he basically forced her to come in bloody early anyway. I would have been like, well, I told you I couldn't come in early. I've tried my best, you know. But she apologizes, and she basically says, look, sorry, my clock didn't go off, and Jeffrey obviously didn't wake me up either. But yeah, so she obviously works with Matthew. She works more in the lab kind of thing than he does. He's obviously a health inspector. She does the analysis, right?
Yeah.
And also has an interest or a profession with botany as well on the side.
And she does say to Matthew that something was weird with...
She says he was weird, yeah.
Yeah, he said it just seemed off. There was something, not right with him yet. In the morning.
And you kind of feel like Matthew's kind of slightly biased against him anyway, but he's not going to take advantage of the situation.
No.
So... Later that evening, Elizabeth heads back home, and she starts trying to talk to Jeffrey because, as she said, he was acting weird in the morning.
Yeah.
And he immediately there's no emotion there. He's just devoid of emotion. He tells her he's going out. No explanation, no reason.
And the weirdest thing is that he says she thinks he's going to go to the game, and he's not.
Yeah, because it's his life, right? That was literally the thing that he loved more than anything.
Yeah, and he gave his tickets away, apparently.
Yeah, which she can't believe.
No.
She goes to touch him as he's leaving, and she immediately kind of recoils because he's just completely emotionless. So naturally, she goes to Matthew's house. And I get it. She's going. I can never quite decide when I watch this film. I always feel like she's going to like her friend's house, right, or maybe her best friend or close friend.
Yeah.
He clearly wants more than that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's very clear. I think there's a hint of it with her as well, but I do like that this film never confirms it from her side particularly. Like
No.
he clearly does, but it almost feels unrequited even in the end.
Well, she does say it towards the end. She does say she loves him.
Yeah, I guess I never took it as a. No, I don't know. There's love and there's love, isn't there? I'm not sure.
That's the. I guess that's the question. Is a case of how much. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. It could just be me. I always felt like it was kind of almost, almost as she's kind of cold to his emotion in that regard. If you know what I mean.
And maybe it is literally at the end. It's a case of, well, they're probably the only people left.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love you more than plants. Yeah.
Yeah, I love you more than plants. Yeah.
But anyway, as I said, he feeds her this massive piece of raw pepper that he's barely cut, and then insists that she stays for lunch. Gives her wine, and they do have a really sweet moment, I think. On the roof. Always and jealous of people that have got roof terraces.
Saying that she thinks she might be, losing it a bit, and he's, I don't think you're losing it. I just think you need to see someone, and you think, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a bit extreme. If I went over my best friend's house, and I was like, I don't know, man, my partner, she's treating me like shit, and my best friend, she was just like, I think you should see a psychiatrist. I'd be like, wow. Yeah. I came over here for you to say she was a prick, not for you to tell me I need help.
I mean, maybe I've got the wrong attitude towards psychiatrists anyway, but to me, that's always like, fuck off.
No, if I've come over and I'm drinking wine at my best friend's house in the middle of the night, I do not want to hear that I need a psychiatrist. I want to be told that I'm right and that they're awful people. I want you to make me feel better. You could talk sense into me tomorrow. Tonight is not the time for that. But she takes it really well.
Yeah, and he lightens the mood by making her do the thing with the eyes.
The eyes, yeah, which I'm assuming is just something she is capable of doing. Yeah.
Yeah. The eye thing always reminds me of the scene in Gremlins.
Oh yeah, the Gremlin, yeah.
Where Gizmo's first introduced to, I think it's Corey. Which one is it? Feldman or Haim? I always forget which one's which.
I'm not sure.
Feldman? Yes, Corey Feldman, I think. Corey Feldman's talking, sort of saying, "Hey, can you do the blinking thing? And can you do this with your eyes?" And the little mogwai that circles his eyes. Yep, that's what she did.
But yeah, she insists that Jeffrey isn't Jeffrey. Basically, there's something. She's like, he looks like him. He acts, he's acting different, but it's just like he's not there.
And he is, you should see my friend. He's a psychiatrist. He writes all these books.
Yeah.
And don't think of him as a psychiatrist. It's like, how are you supposed to think of him?
Yeah, I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
He is a psychiatrist to me. He might be your friend. He's not my friend.
Yeah.
But anyway, they, you definitely get that chemistry, at least from him towards her. And he doesn't take advantage or anything. He doesn't push it, but he does suggest, as you said, that she speak to David, who we'll meet a little later. The next day, the things are kind of set more in motion, and things are kind of more becoming more to the front. Things are pushed more to the front for Matthew, where he's at this Chinese laundry.
Yeah.
And he's brought in this white shirt, and she's like, doesn't she say it's blood or something? And he's like, it's not blood. It's
something like that. Yeah.
It's sauce or something. Whatever it is. Wine. I'm guessing it's wine, but yeah. But in any case, the husband says to Matthew, he's like, she's wrong. You need.
He says you're a doctor, aren't you? He says not medical doctor.
Yeah. There's many doctors, friend.
That sort of scientist, he sort of says, and it's like, my wife, she's not right. Look at my wife. It's like, what do you mean? Look at my wife. It's like, she's not right. That's not my wife, I tell you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you just, again, you see this woman just staring at them through this sort of like, plastic.
And they do this in the 50s version as well quite well, where you have, like, in one scene it will be, oh, there's something wrong with him or her. And then later it's like they're both fine with each other, and he's like, oh, okay, they've got to him or her now as well. And here we get it with this Chinese couple. And yeah, he says, like, she's just wrong. She's not right.
Yeah.
So
And it's for Matthew. It's like everything that Elizabeth was saying, but he's still sort of
he's getting it from someone else now, but he's still like, it's just coincidence. It's just weird, you know. It's a full moon or something, you know. It's like time of year. People are being weird. People are being paranoid. It's the 70s. But you know, he heads back to the health department offices later, and he sees Elizabeth there. And she kind of confides in him that she's basically been following Jeffrey like all day. Because she's concerned. I mean, you know, obviously, it's like husband.
Here we've got groups of people in corridors that just seem to be watching them.
Yes. And she says that all day Jeffrey's been having meetings with complete strangers, and you know, they've been passing parcels between them, and she thinks there's some really weird like conspiracy of some kind going on. And that Jeffrey's just like a part of this wider conspiracy, which again would fall in line with what Matthew has started to see, you know, the Chinese laundry and stuff. But again, he's like, well, you know, it wouldn't hurt for you to see my friend David. And he says, like, he's not gonna treat you like you're crazy. He'll just reframe things. He'll just frame things in a way that might make it easier for you to understand. And you kind of get the impression that maybe Matthew has gone to David professionally as well as just as a friend before, and that he's maybe helped Matthew get through some things.
Yeah, he says it's a book signing, doesn't he? So he says it'll be fine with just some people there. We're just going to go over and
introduce you, basically.
Fair and fine.
Yeah. So, you know, they go to the book signing, which is basically David Kibner's book signing. He's there personally, and you know, he's on the and we do get on the way. We do get the Kevin McCarthy cameo from the first movie. He turns up, and lovely nice moment where, you know, he says, "Oh, they're coming for us, and whatnot." Really great scene. Obviously, it's not a sequel because it would be the slowest invasion.
I was going to say, some people erroneously think it's the same character, but it isn't.
I don't know how it would work. It's too many years. Yeah. Because in this movie, it goes so quick.
Really slow invasion if it took that long.
Slower than the fucking thing they injected with later in this movie.
Yeah.
This is going to help you fall asleep in 5 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he runs off, and they're both shocked.
So especially when he gets run over.
Yeah, hear a screeching of brakes, and obviously he's been hit. And they drive around. And
I love the bit when Matthew's like, "Oh, the policeman will help."
Yeah, he's
like, logically the policeman will help.
Rational, logical brain is just, you know, oh look, there's a policeman. The policeman's turning up. You know, he'll sort it. It'll be fine. Yeah. And they get, you know, they drive past, and there's just crowds of people just sort of staring at him.
Stood staring. Yeah.
And apparently, when they were filming that scene, there was a naked guy looked up and saw them filming this and said the original was better.
Hey, you don't know that. You haven't seen the final movie, my friend.
The director said we got our first criticism and we haven't even finished the film yet.
And he's not even wearing clothes.
Exactly.
You also get, again, you see other people running down the street as well. Not that like Matthew and Elizabeth don't notice, but you know, it's.
Well, I mean, it looks like there are people chasing him.
But but other people are running as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of becoming more and more widespread, but no one's talking to each other. So it's all kind of in the background. You're seeing people run, and it does play on that paranoia where you're like, well, you know, I've walked down the street plenty of times and seen someone running. You don't know what they're running for. You assume they're just running because they're late for something or whatever. You never know. It really plays on that paranoia. It's great. It's really, really well done. And I think that scene is particularly one of the better cameos in a movie, you know? Because a lot of those, like, oh, we'll get a cameo from the person in the original movie is always shit. Almost always shit.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are done with a sort of wink, wink, nod.
Yeah, and it's not here at all.
This does that. I mean, you could say, oh, well, it's just the same scene that he did.
Well, it is, but again, you could never know who Kevin McCarthy was. You could have never watched the original, and this scene works. It doesn't feel awkward.
No.
Usually you see a cameo, and you're like, even if I didn't know this was a cameo, it feels weird. Like, so this is a thing, right? You're doing a thing. I can't remember what it was now. I was watching something a while ago, and I said to my dad about it, and I was like, "Did you think that scene was really awkward in that place?" And he was like, "Oh, that's the author." I was like, "Oh, there you go." I didn't know it was the author, but it was really awkward. That I could tell from the way it was filmed that it was meant to be someone, you know.
Yeah. It's almost like it's almost like the sort of, it's a here, look.
Yeah, and you don't get that
the
here.
film almost stops, and you get
yeah, but you don't get that there. I think it works really well.
No.
So they head to the book party and they meet with Jack, who is a friend of Matthew's, played by Jeff Goldblum. And he's trying to do some poetry, isn't he? He wants to do poetry, and he gets really mad in a bit that he doesn't get the opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's not a weird thing, but there's a thing with his character. If you notice, he definitely has a lot of anxieties, and he hates modern psychiatry.
Yes,
and he's wearing an army.
Yeah.
He
clearly, he has some PTSD. He has some issues.
Yeah, it's very much never says, but I think very much suggests that he's clearly, been out and done some things and has witnessed the horrors of war.
Yeah, and because he really hates Kibner. Like, he hates Kibner, and Kibner is like a bit of a sleazy fuck. I think he's not a nice person, but it's real, like, Jack above even that is just like he despises the guy. I do find it funny that he gets mad that he didn't get to recite his poetry, even though it's like, well, you've gate crashed his fucking book signing. Like, it's not your event. But anyway,
I get the impression that he was supposed to.
Yeah, maybe that it was planned that he would. But obviously, Kibner, as they get there, Matthew phones the police, doesn't he, about the incident?
Yeah, he's trying to report the accident,
and the police are just kind of like being massively unhelpful, obstructive even.
And I think, again, Goldblum's character is it's like, why are you talking to the police? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Why are you talking to these? Like, you can see he's already a paranoid guy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that when his first thing is, this book's a crock of shit. I hate it. It's all pseudo intellectual bullshit.
He's still got. I think it's just because he's in that. It's this phase of Jeff Goldblum. It's before Jeff Goldblum became the lovable man that we all know him as from Jurassic Park onwards. At this stage, he's still very much in that Death Witch stage to me.
Yeah,
where he's like mental unhinged, and I'm kind of like, oh god, he's terrifying.
He hasn't reached the charming mental illness stage yet. He's at the disturbing mental illness
yes, exactly that. I
mean, if that is such a thing, but you know what I mean.
It feels well, Jeff Goldblum had that thing for sure. Meanwhile, while Matthew's on the phone, Elizabeth starts listening to this woman. Now, obviously, it's a book signing by a psychiatrist, so there are people there with issues. They've come to get the book, but they've obviously come to talk to him as well. And this one woman is basically saying that her husband is an imposter. Mm-hmm. And again, it's exactly what she's been experiencing. Yeah. Now, Kibner does manage to kind of calm her down. Her husband is there, and he is emotionless. He is everything that Jeffrey is.
He does smile at her.
Yeah, it feels fake.
It's not a smile that reaches his eyes, as they say.
Yeah.
And also, this was one of the guys that Jeffrey was meeting.
Oh, yes, it was. You're right. Sorry, yes, it was. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think Elizabeth notices that.
Yeah. She does on the way out, though. She does manage to get the woman, and she says, like, contact me.
Yeah, because I know what you're going through. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Come phone me.
Yeah. Matthew introduces Elizabeth to Kibner.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to admit that, over the last few days, there's been a few people coming up and saying this.
Yeah. And I think there's a thing with his character.
Oh, I thought he was a pod person from the fucking start. Like,
do you think from the start?
I don't think from the start anymore. But when I first watched it,
Yeah.
there was something about him immediately that I was like, oh no. No, I don't think he is from the start. I just think he's designed to be purposely ambiguous in that way.
Yeah.
And when I have a distinct memory of first watching it thinking he was evil immediately.
Yeah. And do you know what the funny thing for me is?
What?
No matter, I have seen Leonard Nimoy in many movies, many series that aren't Star Trek. But it is always still weird to me whenever you see Leonard Nimoy smile. There's just something wrong about Leonard Nimoy smiling.
Yes, it's Mirror Spock. He should have a beard. Yeah, no, you're right. It is weird seeing him smile, which is unfair because he was an actor and he was a very good actor.
But I've seen him in loads, like so many interviews where he's a lovely, jovial guy. I mean, I've even we've all seen. Well, I'm not saying we've all seen, but most of us have seen the music video of Bilbo, the Bilbo Baggins song.
Who hasn't? That's become a meme. Everyone's seen that.
Exactly. Surely. So it's really it's not unknown for him to smile. It just still
it happens. Yeah, it definitely happens. But yeah, he even says, look, a lot of people have been acting this way, and they feel like their partners are an imposter or whatever. Yeah.
And he thinks it's a sort of mass hysteria thing.
Yeah, because he says they all get over it pretty quick.
Yeah.
They say it, but then the next day they're fine. So it's like,
Yeah, in a couple of days it'll be all back to normal. And,
he thinks it's like emotional isolation of the modern age and stuff, doesn't he? And whatnot. But even Matthew notices, he's like, you don't seem to be listening to what she's really telling you.
Yeah.
They have that brief conversation when he's about to take her home. He kind of privately talks to Kibner, Matthew.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's obvious that Kibner knows that he fancies her massively. And he's like, well, look, she keeps saying this about Jeffrey. What do you think I should do? And of course he means, what should I do right now in this situation to resolve this issue with her and Jeffrey? And he's like, I think you should fucking take her home, mate. Do not sleep with her. It's a bad idea. You just, the way he laughs and says it has always made me think like, yeah, that's a friend telling you, do not do this.
Do not knock boots with that.
Yeah, this is a bad idea. This is your friend.
And you get that bit as well where they're outside that sort of, it's like a liquor store or something, and they're talking, and Jeff Goldblum goes past, and he grabs him and he slams him against the wall, and he starts shouting at him, and Jeff Goldblum's like completely shocked by what's going on. He's like, what the hell's going on? And he sort of turns around to Elizabeth and he says, now, were you shocked by what I just did there? Was that normal behaviour? And you're like, what just happened? That was fucking weird. And I think he wants to punch him, and Matthew's like, no, just go home. Just go home. It's like, what the fuck was that?
It's not helping. Meanwhile, Jack returns to meet his wife Nancy, who runs the sleaziest, most disgusting place on the planet.
Yeah.
They run a mud bath facility where sweaty, horrible blokes come to swim around in mud.
Yeah.
It's so disgusting. Like, I'm sure this is a thing. I'm sure it is. But
I'm sure
filmed so grossly and so disgustingly. And you've got this like morbidly obese, really rude guy and Rasputin just having a mud bath next to each other. Of course, Veronica Cartwright, wonderful. I love Veronica Cartwright. I think no one can act distressed better than her. Ever since Alien, I'm like, she's just...
The problem for me with Veronica Cartwright is every time someone mentions her, I immediately hear her screaming.
Oh, It's in your head immediately. Yeah, absolutely.
And she's such a wonderful actress, but she's great. I think she's been slightly tainted by her very cryy roles.
Yeah, she's very good at it, and therefore I think she got typecast into those roles because she's just very good at it.
I mean, her character. Have you seen Witches of Eastwick?
Yeah.
Her character in that sort of kind of gets what you sort of think. Part of you thinks, oh, she kind of got what she does because she was horrible, but then you really think about it and you think, actually, what happens to her is actually she didn't deserve that bad.
Yeah.
Poor woman. Because she's like, there's another thing with Veronica Cartwright, which seems to be another thing for her characters, is her characters are usually right.
Yes.
Even if they're horrible, they're right.
She's right here. Her one mistake was talking to Matthew at the end. Like, apart from that, she's totally spot on. She had it nailed.
I mean, a bit later, she says, "Oh, these things must have come from space," and
she's like, "Don't be ridiculous."
And Jack's like, "Fuck off." No, it didn't. It didn't come from space. Stop! You read too much weird shit.
And Jack is almost always wrong in this movie. So
yes, he is.
But anyway, Jack is upset because he didn't get to read his poetry at someone else's book signing. Yeah. She tells him to basically relax. And it's like, well, you're in this.
This is their relationship.
Yeah.
He
God,
freaks out. She calms him down.
Yeah, definitely. So she deals with the obese guy who can't get out of the bath. Yeah. And then she speaks to Rasputin, and he gives her a plan. He's given her this plan, and it's exactly the same one that Jeffrey had.
And he says you should read this book.
Yeah.
In the most monotonous way. It's a really good book.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've read that several times. You should read such and such a book, she says to him, with like real passion and real enthusiasm, and he just stares at her.
Yeah.
It's like, okay then.
Yep. But you get the feeling that I imagine this place gets like fucking 5 of those guys a day, Well,
it sounds like they're regulars.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
This isn't the first time she's pulled that dude out of the the mud.
No, because she even says you're going to kill yourself one of these days. Like, yeah.
And and again, there's a weird, not weird thing. There's a thing with her when she's giving him a massage after he's like had a shower and he got rid of the mud, and he says to her, "Can you turn the music off? It's driving me crackers."
And she's like, my plants love it.
It's for the plants. She said, plants, and she says, this is the one. I guess the one time she's wrong is that she says plants have feelings. It's like, plants might, but these ones don't.
There is music playing later as well, though. They might have something about the music, but yes, the plants do not have feelings, or at least they're very Vulcan-y about it.
Yeah.
So later, Nancy's kind of closing up for the evening, and she notices someone lying under one of the sheets, but she thinks it's Jack. So she approaches and she removes the sheet, only to discover that it's actually barely a man. It is a man-shaped thing. It's lacking key features.
Formed.
Yeah.
And technically, it is Jack.
Yes, technically it is Jack. We also see Jack is like sleeping heavily nearby. She manages to wake him up because she basically like
creeps out.
Yeah, but he's got she hits him and he's got a nosebleed then, hasn't he? From that point on.
Yeah.
But of course, he gets the nosebleed. The thing on the table gets a nosebleed as well. And they're like, "The fuck do we do?" And they're like, "I don't know. Call the health inspector. He's our friend. This falls under health."
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
Body health inspector. Perfect.
Yeah. I'm not that kind of doctor, but you're a health inspector. I'm not that kind of health inspector either. Well, I don't know. Just come over and don't close us down, please.
As you would say in England, it's the man from the council. What would you want?
Man from the council. You should know everything.
Exactly.
So of course, he comes over and he's just like, "This is a joke. What are you guys doing?" And they're like, this is not a joke. This is genuine. And they start to examine. And then I think is it Nancy or is it Matthew who says it's almost like a fetus? It's like a full-grown fetus, but it's like a fetus. And I think it's Jack that says like it's got no fingerprints. It's like not even got fingerprints. It's just bizarre. He basically now Matthew is like, "Oh, hold on. I probably need to call Elizabeth now because this is starting to feel like her ramblings might be making some sense here." Yeah. But of course he can't get hold of her on the phone.
And she went home and
to basically deal with Jeffrey and try and get things.
And he's basically just sat in the living room watching.
He sent her to a psychiatrist and sent her home. It's kind of on him now.
And he sat with his headphones on watching what I think I've read is a weather channel.
Oh, is it? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Which again, plants would. It
just looks like he's watching dials on something.
Yeah.
Apparently, those are weather. It was a weather channel from in that time. Apparently, it just panned around weather instruments.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah. So Matthew now feels, I guess, concerned enough that he breaks into the house. He's past kind of playing now. He's pretty sure that this is more than just her feeling off or people feeling off. Something's going on. He's seen that it's kind of hard to go against the evidence, right? That he's just seen is kind of crazy. So he breaks into the house and he sneaks in past Jeffrey up the stairs, and he gets Elizabeth, who's asleep on the bed. Mm-hmm. He goes to take her, but then he realizes and sees the duplicate lying nearby in like a off room.
I think it's like they call it a terrarium. It's like it's a little sort of greenhousey type thing that's just got lots of little plants that clearly Elizabeth has been cultivating.
Yeah, so this body's kind of growing, and it looks very much like the body in the baths. It's like not quite formed. It's like
it's more formed. It's obviously her.
Yes, it's obviously her, but like doesn't have like nipples. It's like weird. Like it's still it's
haven't quite set in yet.
Not quite there, but yeah, you're right. You can definitely tell it's her, whereas you couldn't tell it was Jack. It was like until the nosebleed, you couldn't tell it was.
And
Jack.
Until the eyes open.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course. Yeah. Which I think happens like now, right? Pretty much in the movie.
Yeah.
I think it's like at this point we go back to the baths and she sees the thing open its eyes.
Yeah.
And we get to see as well that because she approaches the body as it's on the table, mm-hmm. and she's looking at it, and we see that as soon as Jack falls asleep, the eyes open.
Mm-hmm.
So there's obviously this connection.
Yeah.
So the body is awake until she wakes him up.
Yeah.
And then again, it's gone again.
Mm-hmm. Well, back at the Elizabeth's house, Jeffrey's come upstairs, and Matthew hides in a closet,
mm-hmm.
and you get this wonderful shot of him in the closet, just almost complete shadow.
Yeah,
and it's this sinisterous shot of him as he's like watching Jeffrey. And
it's the most sinister shot of a protagonist ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing is looking at that thing, you can. I mean, it's a stupid thing to say, but you can definitely tell that Kiefer Sutherland is his son.
Oh God, yeah, in the shadows for sure.
Because the shot very much reminded me of one of the shots of David.
Yeah.
In Lost Boys, where he just comes out of the shadows and you just see his eyes and his mouth, and it's like, wow,
it's that facial structure under shadow.
Facial structure is almost
mm-hmm.
Completely the same. Which again, of course it is. It's his son, but
yeah, no, you're right. Those certain shots really really make you go, oh yeah, he is for sure.
Beautiful. And he sees Jeffrey. Jeffrey puts his hand sort of like on her chest, doesn't he? And it looks like he's sort of feeling for something.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes back out.
Yeah.
And he comes back out the shadows, and he basically picks her up.
Yeah.
And I think he sort of he looks at the other body, and he's sort of not quite sure what to do. You see those sort of like thoughts going through his head, and he's like, no, I've got to focus on her. I've got to get her out.
Yeah. So, plus, there is already a body at the baths if he wants to figure anything out. Right now, he has to get her out, which I think is what the kind of conclusion he comes to.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they all head to the baths.
Yeah, and they've called.
Yeah, that's right. Matthew's like, Oh, Jack, I know what'll make your day better. I'll call that guy you fucking hate.
You fucking hate.
He can come over.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kibner heads over as well. But the body is vanished.
Yeah.
Matthew also he reports the other body, doesn't he? And we get because at first we get Kibner. Kibner gets called, and then they go and report to the police that about Elizabeth's other body. He says to the police about the other body. They all head back to the house because that's right, because Matthew's going to get clothes for her, right? Because he's like, well, I'm going to get her stuff.
Yeah, he's left Elizabeth with Nancy. Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And when the body, they notice that when David says that there was no body, there's no I don't know what you mean. There is, I think Nancy notices that the window's open.
Yeah.
And they open the window, and the
bin man.
Oh, and behold, there is a bin man.
Yeah.
Chucking some sort of dust into the back of the the lorry. And they're sort of, I think, cogs are beginning to turn here. They're beginning to see.
There's a theme. Yes.
They're beginning to notice this. That it's maybe not a coincidence.
No, almost certainly not. But yeah, and Kibner's kind of like, what on earth are you guys talking about? I can't really believe any of this. But they all convoy back to the house.
Yeah.
And
police are there. The police have turned up. There's, they're cornering off the house.
Yeah.
They're going in to find.
Yeah, because someone's been kidnapped.
Yes.
And this is another thing where you're like, none of this makes any sense. Mm-hmm. They get there and the police are like, well, you've kidnapped someone. We're going to arrest you. Like, obviously. And you get the feeling that Jeffrey probably doesn't like Matthew anyway. Or at least there's some tension between them. But Jeffrey's like, I'm not going to press charges. It's fine. I completely understand. Don't worry about it. And then like everyone's like, what? Like, what on earth? And fortunately, Kibner's there in this instance to kind of, because Matthew starts spouting craziness, right? It's like, to any normal person is going to be like, what?
Yeah.
She's talking about double bodies and like, you're not who you say you are, and I've come to collect stuff, and
yeah, I think the detective is normal.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah.
But there was at least one or two of the policemen that aren't, because Jeffrey and one or two of the policemen exchange looks.
Yeah, and because you get that like silent communication, don't you, where he kind of agrees to them getting clothes and things. There's an element. Yeah, I think you're right, because I think there's an element of like, well, there's enough normal people here that it could be a problem, so let them do what they need to do and leave.
Yeah,
don't cause a problem.
We'll get them later, sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll get them later, exactly. So yes, so Kibner talks to the police, and Jeffrey doesn't really care anyway. He's like, fine, whatever. So they all start to kind of form their plan. Their thoughts all kind of come together. People are being duplicated, and the alternates are being put in their place. Kibner obviously does not believe this. He's like, I'm not sure I buy any of this, because you get that great scene where Nimoy's on the bed or on the sofa and he's like calm as shit. Everyone else is stressing and he's just like, this is ridiculous, like, you're talking nonsense.
Yeah.
And they do have that conversation on the roof as well, don't they? I think him and Matthew have that conversation on the roof.
Yeah, with the tower looming over them.
With the tower, yeah. He says, well, look, I really just think there must be a logical explanation for all of this, and I don't think that people are being copied. It's ludicrous. Of course, Kibner still hasn't seen bodies at all, because they've all disappeared.
Yeah. Elizabeth's
body's disappeared.
Well,
Jack's body's disappeared.
The question is, did Kibner get rid of the body?
Well,
because clearly, I think that window was open from the inside.
The window was open from the inside, and of course, as he leaves the house, Kibner gets into a car with 2 other people, including Jeffrey.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I think it might be the copper and Jeffrey, right?
I think it's the copper and Jeffrey.
Yeah. So obviously, by this point,
the other husband and Jeffrey. I can't forget which one it is now, but it's somebody we've seen before.
But of course, Nimoy is kind of full of emotion as well. He's smiling and stuff. So it's almost like if he is one of them, he's almost like a higher level where he can kind of.
No, I think it's just acting, because I think.
Yeah, like he's got because a lot of them don't have that.
I don't think the smile reaches his eyes. I think it's one of those.
It's a fake smile.
Smile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So obviously, Matthew's not having any of this. And so he spends I don't know, a couple of days. Like he's phoning people.
He's phoning
having
people.
meetings, and he's like, "Oh, surprise, surprise! No one will take me seriously about my story of duplicates." And
and it's him, walking the streets of San Francisco with huge crowds and huge, the constant sort of encroaching paranoia of. Yeah. Maybe that person's not right. Maybe that person's not right.
Well,
there are people looking at him, and there are people, maybe it's just normal people looking at him. Maybe it's not. Maybe,
And of course, you get the lady from the bookstore shows up to meet Elizabeth, and she's like, "I'm fine now.
Yep.
No issue at all. I love my husband. He's my husband. He's great." Yep. And it's like, oh.
And he goes to the laundry.
Yes, and again, it's fine.
And again, the guy's, no, she's fine now. Everything's good. We're all good.
Yeah,
and it's I like the it does a very good job of first of all, he's just walking along the streets, he's phoning things, he's quite calm.
Yeah,
but the further along the streets he's going, the more and more the pressure gets. The more frantic he is, the more people seem to be wrong. The more
he's seeing, he can't help but notice it now.
Yeah.
Now that he's aware, he's seeing it everywhere.
And almost everywhere he goes, there's a rubbish bin, a rubbish lorry picking up.
Yes, and we also see. Isn't this the scene where, or one of the scenes, the kind of montage is where Elizabeth is trying to get the plant analyzed, and her boss kind of berates her, and he's like, "Well, you're always late for work, so we're going to do this, not you." And it's like, okay, so she's being shut out of that as well now,
Yeah. We've forgotten one important thing.
Mm-hmm. We always do.
We always do. Yeah. We forgot one important character that we haven't been introduced to.
Who?
The banjo player and his dog.
Oh God, yes. We'll
got
get to that mask-wearing
the
dog
banjo
later.
player and his dog, who Matthew knows, because we're at the very beginning.
They're passed out on the floor.
He sat there, and Matthew, says hello to him and strokes the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps popping up. Apparently, the music and the voice of that is Jerry Garcia from The Grateful Dead.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
The actual actor isn't. That's an actor.
Right? Yeah.
The voice and the banjo playing is Jerry Garcia.
Huh, that's cool. I never knew that.
Yeah. We'll get to another cameo as well in a bit.
Yeah, I know we've got Don Siegel later, haven't we?
Yes.
But anyway, later that evening, I guess, everyone stays at Matthew's house, and Kibner basically gives Elizabeth a sedative, right, to help her sleep.
Yeah.
Before he heads off. So, obviously no one really understands at this point, and so everyone decides they're gonna slowly fall asleep, except for Nancy, who, as you said, she tends to be right in the movie. She
tends to be right.
She is right, because of course, as they sleep, we start to see that there are these pods, the 4 pods for 4 people, in the garden.
Yeah, and Matthew's falling asleep in a chair, in like a deck chair.
He's like nearest to the pods, isn't he? Yeah. And as they fall asleep, these like kind of vines, tendrils, kind of come out of the pods, and they start attaching to the people.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
and you get a wonderful birth scene. Basically,
it's great, isn't it?
The way you describe it is.
I must admit, some of the shots in this film are really, really good.
Yeah.
Some of the effect shots don't hold up. Dog face.
Oh, I like dog face.
No, dog face. Oh, sorry, I need to clarify. Dog face is fine. Dog running up is not fine. Dog running up is obviously a dog with a mask on. Yeah. Close up dog face works, and it's creepy. But yeah. But when he runs up, it's like you can see the shadows where there's no eyes. It's just a mask. But whatever. Anyway. Yeah, so we like you said, you do get these gross kind of birthing scene where they start to
you get these sort of horrible little sort of babies that grow, rapidly.
Yeah.
Into adult forms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you see the plant, and then the plant kind of opens, and then within the plant, there's like fleshy stuff inside the plant.
And the soundscapes of this movie is
great.
Wonderful. The
really good.
Fleshy pops and the splitting sounds of the pods are like, just so visceral and gross.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And the soundtrack, it's full of weird like pig noises and apparently the heartbeat is from the. I think I don't know.
It's got a little Forbidden Planet in its soundtrack.
It does.
Not to that extent, but a little.
It's got like the MRI. Is it MRI? Not MRI. What's the baby heartbeat thing?
Oh God.
Oh my word.
I don't know.
It's got that sort of baby's heartbeat. I think it was. I'm not sure whether it was ultrasound. Yes, it's got this sort of, which I think was one of. I'm not sure whether it was the director's wife that was pregnant or whether it was one of the other sort of crew whose wife.
Right. Oh, while you're there, darling, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, just use our baby's ultrasound.
Cool. That might be like the earliest cameo of a person ever.
Yeah.
Free birth. So anyway, luckily for Matthew, before he's completely taken over, Nancy wakes him up. Yeah, and of course they all then are like, "Oh, we need to wake everybody up right now."
Yeah. And Matthew's. It's been long enough that his.
Oh, there's that you can tell. Yeah,
they're almost completely fully formed versions of them now.
Well, they're fully formed enough that we'll get to it in a second, but obviously, they he like Matthew, first of all, he tries calling, doesn't he? Tries calling, and weirdly the operators already know who he is.
Yep.
They're like, "Oh, Matthew." He's like, this is odd.
And Jack's like, hang up the phone now.
Yeah. Matthew. Oh, sorry, no. Before that, we get the bit where Matthew kills the pod people, right?
Well, I think he wakes up Elizabeth first, doesn't he?
He wakes them up, and then he goes
back outside. And
I love that hesitation where he's like, "Oh, it's her. I don't know."
Yes, exactly. He does not destroy hers.
No.
He sees his own, and he hesitates with his own, but it's him. So I think he pulls up the courage to smash in the pod for himself,
but not her.
But not her. He can't bring himself to smash Elizabeth's pod.
But
and I think Nancy notices that they're blocking off the road. There are people turning up. They've answered
and of course the operators know who he is, and it's all like, oh God,
we've got to get out of the back.
They need to run. It's a really creepy scene where the whole of society is now turned on you, and is all working together, everyone in one. Imagine everybody in your city, police, fire department, ambulance service, homeless people, school teachers, shop assistant, everyone is working together to bring you down. And it's like, oh God, like you said, the scene that I think is really creepy, the scene where Elizabeth's like, they're blocking off the road, and then they just start coming from everywhere. The power goes out as well. And you just get that great shot of them all running up the hill.
Yeah,
They're all just rushing up
and
the hill.
it's the really lengthy stairway that they're running down. It's
Yeah, one of the like San Francisco is kind of famous for that kind of stuff, isn't it? And
yeah, it's a famously hilly place.
famously hilly, yes. It's that and driving cars down steep hills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of the two things, but yeah, it's a really creepy scene. I think as you get that horde kind of chasing them.
Mm-hmm. And they are making the sort of the weird screechy pig noises now. It's a lot more open now what they're doing.
Yeah, because you get the feeling that they've won effectively.
Yeah, they've reached the point where
they had to be quiet.
Clearly not much of humanity left.
Yeah, they had to be quiet while they were infiltrating. Now they've taken over, they can just be open about it.
Yeah.
You've moved past that assimilation point, and now it's like, no, now you're going to be forced if you haven't been taken already.
Yeah. It's just cleaning up the stragglers.
Yeah, yeah. And it's crazy to think like that's descended to that in one day. Because yesterday, the pod people let them go instead of making a scene. Now it's just tipped. It's tipped over to where they're in charge.
Yeah.
So they run. And they get down to the docks, don't they? And they
I mean, there's a lot of sort of running through streets and things, and again, you get these wonderful shadow shots of just them running along streets and these huge shadows.
And then you see the plants as well. They're running past the plants as well, and there's some really really good shots in this.
And I think I can't remember if it's this bit or slightly later, but they come across the sleeping body of the tramp and his dog.
And his dog, yeah.
And he tries to wake him up and he won't wake up. But Matthew does kick the pod.
Yes, which kind of...
the pod sort of bleeds, if you like.
Uh-huh.
It
goop
comes out of the pod, which I guess is why...
It turns out a bit wrong. Yeah.
Happens.
Yeah, well, that is cool. They gave enough of a reason for it, I think. And it's really cool. It's a really creepy concept. And I think mostly works.
It freaked me the fuck out when I first saw it as a kid.
Yes, it did. I think it's only as an adult. There's things you notice, especially now, I own this film on Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are are bits, like, now you see it on Blu-ray where you're like, oh, wow, so the pod people also made Elizabeth's fillings and stuff. That's interesting.
But honestly, I'm not a big lover of the whole 4K thing because I think it ruins a lot of movies.
I don't mind it, to be honest. It doesn't bother me. I think a lot of film is 4K anyway, original film, when it's filmed. So, it is as they saw it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it does show a lot of stuff. And Elizabeth's fillings when she's shouting later was very like, okay, that's kind of funny. Yeah. The pod people also made fillings. But no, these scenes are great. The chase scene is amazing. They ultimately get cornered, and Jack ends up sacrificing himself, doesn't he?
Yeah. And Nancy's like, they're cornering us. They've
got she knows.
We're not going to get out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jack.
Jack bravely is like, nope, that's it.
Yeah.
But Nancy goes with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where they get separated.
Yeah. So yeah, Matthew and Elizabeth are on their own. So they first of all try to get a cab, don't they? Which is where we get the Don Siegel.
Yes.
Cameo.
So Don Siegel, the original director.
Yeah, he's the cab driver.
He's the cab driver, and apparently they were all a bit scared because apparently he'd lost most of his sight.
Oh my god!
And
was he genuinely driving?
Yes.
Oh wow.
He didn't have his glasses on either.
Oh my god.
So apparently he was, it's like, why? Why would you just let him wear his glasses, surely?
Or just let him fake drive.
Yeah.
Wow.
There is another story.
Or give him a different cameo. You don't have to give the blind man the driving cameo.
There's apparently a thing with Donald Sutherland as well. Apparently, during one of the chase scenes, somebody actually hit him.
Oh god.
And apparently, as Donald Sutherland looked up into the windscreen of the driver looked up and went, "Oh no, not you!" Which I think is great.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So yeah, they get in the cab and they want to go to the airport. So take us to the airport, and of course it's like a cab driver. He's sort of asking them, "Hey, what you doing? Where you going?"
Cab drivers are allowed to give probing questions. It's normal.
Yeah. They're a little bit more.
Yes. I think Donald Sutherland does a really good job here of acting like a person who's scared, but is trying to play it off like it's normal, like he's fine. Yeah. And he's like, oh, we just got visiting some people outside of town or whatever, interviewing people out of town or something like that.
I mean, this is what Sutherland is. His acting chops are on full display.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah,
there's some amazing, work in this movie.
Really, really good.
I think the only other movie that's is peak as this for him, I think, is Don't Look Now.
Yeah, and we were kind of torn on which one to do. Because obviously we're doing this as a result. I mean, we would have done this film eventually anyway, but we're doing it as a result of his
Both
passing.
Movies are on the list,
Yeah. But we had to pick one, as soon as possible to kind of in tribute. And we did struggle. We had a moment where we were like, oh, which one do we do? Because they're both kind of. When I think Donald Sutherland, I know we said that last week. Despite what the fucking idiots now say, I do not think Hunger Games. I think Don't Look Now and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So
I mean, my favorite Sutherland character is probably Oddball.
Yeah. But we were looking for starring role, weren't we?
He's not the star in that movie. He's a big character. He's a huge presence in that movie, but he's not the he's not the main character.
Yeah. So yeah, the cab driver starts kind of questioning things, and Matthew kind of passes it off. They find though that they end up hitting a roadblock, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And they see that people that are trying to leave the city are just getting arrested.
Yeah, they're being taken out of the cars.
Yeah. Because you get that great shot of the two police bikes as well. Like, you see a lot of shots here where there's like people walking in unison and people driving in unison. They're like a unit. It's like the Borg now, isn't it? Where they're synchronized in everything they're doing is. But yeah, so they find like they can't leave the city. Everyone's being arrested, so they can't escape. There's now pod people like all over the place.
You get the copper comes over to the cab, and the cab driver's like, "Got two in the back," sort of thing.
And no, you haven't.
He shines the light in the back, and they've just they've quickly slipped out the back.
Scarpered. But we see things now where like even the pods are out in the open now. They're like literally on pallet trucks of pods, and they're being handed around, and it's over.
Yeah,
basically. So they end up heading to the offices, don't they? The health offices, and they hide in the offices. And they start doing pills and stuff, don't they? Here to try to stay awake.
Speed. Yeah, and I like it. She says, it's his speed, and he says, How much should it take? And she looks at the dose, and it says, take one. And he says, we should take 5.
Yeah. So they're trying desperately to stay awake, but unfortunately,
I think there's another cameo as well, which I think we've seen him twice. The janitor, I think, is the cinematographer.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah,
oh, that's interesting. So unfortunately, Jack turns up, or not Jack, turns up with Kibner.
Mm-hmm.
And they're finally cornered and captured. Kibner forcibly gives both Elizabeth and Matthew a sedative.
Yeah.
And this is where we get a lot of the basically Kibner now confirmed pod person explains everything, because Matthew's trying to appeal to Kibner's humanity. He's still not quite sure. Maybe there is some Kibner in there, because at one point he's even like, "You're killing me.
You're killing me." Yeah, he says you're killing me. He says it a number of times. He says, "You're killing me, Jack. You're not Jack.
David,
killing me, David. This." And he's like, "No, don't be silly. We're not killing you."
Yeah.
Everything's going to be fine. All your fears and all your anxieties will go away.
Yeah,
You'll
all your emotions.
be reborn as a better person.
But all of your memories and experiences will be in place.
Yeah. You'll just be born a better person.
Yeah. And I always thought that here the pod person obviously has the knowledge that Kibner had. And I almost felt like it was like, hey, you know, you won't have to pine after Elizabeth anymore. That pain will be gone.
Yeah.
Just be emotionless. You won't have to worry about it anymore. You know, because I always got the feeling that like, you know, even if Elizabeth does have those feelings for Matthew, I'm not sure Matthew knows that. And yeah, I feel like as his psychiatrist friend, David's probably well aware and has had these conversations. Yeah. So I always felt like the pod person was kind of playing on that and just being like, you can remove the emotion. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You're going to be better than you were before. Yeah, so they both get injected with this stuff, and I don't know what he injects them with, this sedative, but it is the worst sedative I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, not a very good one.
It's terrible. I mean, I will say though, I think it's probably, I assume it's like, well, if they put them out too fast, then maybe the pods wouldn't form properly, or like it had to be a special thing to where it's like they have to just fall asleep slowly for the process to work.
I mean, they have just taken 5 speed.
That's true.
So I don't know.
That's very actually. I hadn't considered that.
I don't know how much of a counteract that would be.
I've
never taken speed.
Would have been a very sudden end to the movie if they overdosed and died there and then as soon as he injected them. Like, oops.
Yeah, they didn't even get to be pod people. They just died from overdose.
No, that's a really good point. That actually kind of explains that. Now that you mention it.
That's the only thing I could think of is that the 5 speed tablets that they just taken is kind of
doing their work,
blocking it, I suppose.
Yeah, he was right to take 5.
Yeah,
it was a good call. But yeah, it's a great scene. I think you know, there's so many amazing performances in this film that you almost overlook some of Nimoy's work, and Nimoy is great in this. He really is, and I think this scene in particular.
It's one of the few times where I've really hated Nimoy.
Yes, the same, because I love Nimoy, and and it's just like, oh god, yeah, you are sinister here, really sinister.
Yeah, he's just such a smarmy bastard.
Yeah. I think he also mentions the dead world and stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, he explains it all. He says, you know, we came from a dead planet. We floated here, and that's, you know, we you know, use up the resources and we move on.
Yeah. But luckily, Elizabeth and Matthew managed to kill Jack, and they lock Kibner in the freezer.
Yeah.
And as they leave, they run into Nancy, who, you know, there is that moment where like, is she a pod person? It's like, look how emotional she's clearly not a pod person. Like, there's no way. But
how did you get in here? There's like people everywhere.
Yes, and she says,
you can trick them, you can fool them if you just hide your emotions.
Yeah.
You know, just act normal, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, you can fool them for a bit.
Mm. Yeah, cool. So now is probably not a good time to tell you that your husband's dead, right?
Yeah.
Just neglect to mention that for a while.
You haven't seen him, it's fine.
Yeah, I haven't seen him for a while. But she does mention that they got separated. But yeah, so they leave the health department in plain sight. Now they're the infiltrators, which is great. Yeah. Like, the roles have reversed. Now they're the ones that are playing the part and trying to act to be like one of the pod people.
Yeah.
So
there are trucks full of pods.
Yeah. And
there are lines forming, and they're just, like you said, they're completely out in the open now. They're just organizing pod distribution.
Yeah. For other cities, presumably.
Yeah.
Well. And it almost works until the dog head thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, as they're kind of walking through the crowd, this weird hybrid, as you said, probably created when Matthew kicked the pod.
The pod, yeah.
Has created a dog with a human head.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a really creepy shot, actually.
It's really cool.
It's purely the bit when the dog runs up, this kind of like, ugh, a little rough, but the actual effect itself is pretty good, and
Yeah,
it's a very
really
disturbing visual.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, like as I said, it certainly did a number on me when I first watched this movie. It's like, Jesus Christ, that's horrible.
Yeah, and they follow it up with the creepy old lady as well.
Yeah,
who starts screaming and stuff.
And I mean, there is that like that lovely little detail of the dog putting its tongue through the mask. So
yes.
the dog licks the mask, which just makes it that much more creepy.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course they run. Nancy gets separated from Elizabeth and Matthew. And they basically get chased again through the city. And I think the pod people even refer to them, don't they, as type H.
Yeah.
So like, now it's like you're rare enough now that you've got like a designation,
Yeah. It's like, don't worry, we'll get them.
Yeah. So yeah, they ultimately come across this greenhouse where, basically where all of these pods are being cultivated, because obviously they're creating an entire city's worth of people. Yeah. So
is that before or after the docks?
It's after the docks. Sorry, they make their way through the docks and then get to.
They hear bagpipe music.
Yes, because they hide in the back of the truck, don't they?
Yes. That's right. Yes, when they're chased, they get in the back of the truck. Yeah,
because they get in the back of the truck and they're like, "That will be fine," and then they realize that the truck is actually going to be carrying pods.
Yeah, and they get to the docks and they hear music and they think, "Oh, that's humans, boats."
But plants love music.
Get out, it'll be fine. And of course, you see the pallets of pods being loaded onto the ships. And, it's an almost final despair of, oh fuck.
Well, and
it.
Yeah, that's it. And the fact that it's Amazing Grace as well.
And apparently that's the exact same recording that's used in Rothercom. Is
it?
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess because it's played with an echo, isn't it? It's played out in the open, so it's not quite as clear. Yeah, it's not as noticeable. But that's interesting. But of course, we were told earlier by Nancy that plants love music, so it all kind of ties in nicely. So they are starting to feel tired now. it's starting to take effect. They're in this kind of grass, and because they run away. They run, but Elizabeth twists her ankle. That's right.
Yeah.
So
coming down a ladder, she twists her ankle.
So they stop, and they say she says she can't go on much further without sleep. Matthew goes to investigate the music, and leaves Elizabeth for a moment. By the time he comes back, she's asleep.
Yeah,
and you can tell it's already too late because her face is already starting to kind of.
Yeah, you do weird. Get
because Jack had the same. His face had started going weird, and then he got woken up.
The faces. When they're sleeping start deteriorating, don't they? You still get this sort of skin looks like it's starting to flake.
Yeah, and we kind of see the whole thing here. Sorry, we should say they confess their love as well in this before this. He says "I love you" just before he leaves her.
Yeah. There is a moment where they do that really tender kiss.
Yes.
Where they're hiding, and it is a lovely sort of gentle kiss.
It's lovely and fucking upsetting at the same measure.
Exactly.
It's finally, but
it's like quite possibly the last of humanity kissing sort of thing.
Yeah, it's the last moment of maybe the last moment of love
of San Francisco, anyway.
Yeah.
And he can't wake her. She's slowly falling apart, and you get that. I presume it's they've got a line like a thread that they're pulling along her face, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's quite a cool effect.
Really cuts into her skin. It's like, oh,
yeah, it's quite a cool effect.
Yeah,
I actually think it works pretty well.
And when you get the eventual collapse, you can see that that's just a dummy sort of thing, but I think it's still pretty reasonably done. It's still pretty good.
Yeah,
and it basically just completely disintegrates.
Yeah.
And I love his.
His cry is incredible.
Feel his heart breaking
mm-hmm.
as she disintegrates in his hands.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, as soon as she crumbles, the nude clone appears.
Yeah.
In the grass. And she tells Matthew, she's like, everything's going to be all right. The conversion doesn't hurt. It's good. It's a good thing.
Pain. It's no more pain. It's all good.
All you need to do is go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. At this fucking point, everyone's fucking dead.
I mean, you do sort of think, well, fuck, I've
got a naked Brooke Adams in front of me. I'm like, oh, fuck it, whatever. Let's just become a pod person. Fuck it. Maybe it is better on the other side. Everyone's dead now anyway. It's my one chance to be with her, even if she is a pod woman. Fine, I'll do it. But he doesn't, of course. He legs it. Mainly because of her delivery. Again, he sees that it looks like her, but there's no emotion. It's cold.
Yeah.
She is gone. So
because I think that it's a nice contrast because she's been the very
most emotional. Yeah, other than Nancy, who's like ludicrous for someone who runs a calming mud clinic.
As a complete aside and not to do with religion, do you know who Brooke Adams is married to?
No idea. She's
married to Tony Shalhoub.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So Matthew runs away. He heads to the greenhouse and climbs up the scaffolding.
Yep.
He grabs a fire axe, and it's really weird because the alarm gets started as soon as he grabs the fire axe. I don't think it's because he grabbed the fire axe. I think it's an alert that he's there, but it's kind of like the second he takes it, the alarm goes off.
Maybe it is part of
it might be. It might be
to an alarm. I don't know.
There will shortly be a big fire because this place is a fire hazard. And of course Matthew starts cutting the ropes that are holding up all of the lights that are kind of heating the pods. So they start falling down. The whole place starts bursting into flames. We see
Sutherland did all his own stunts here as well.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, and apparently the explosion at the very end was slightly mistimed. He barely made it, but apparently a stuntman was injured. Stuntman missed his cue and was injured.
Wow!
But he was fine.
Right.
But yeah, he wanted to do his own stunts.
Fair enough.
So that is him jumping down on top of those.
That's amazing. Yeah,
that's cool.
So yeah, we see the hordes kind of pursuing him. We see Elizabeth coming through, walking through, looking for him as well. He manages to hide under the dock, and it's a very similar scene that you get to the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, except it's the couple, it's both of them, it's the doctor and the lady at that point hiding. I think they're hiding in like a sewer or something. But yeah, he's kind of hiding under the dock, and you get that great shot where they're all walking over the wood, and he's kind of looking up. It's one of the more iconic shots, I think, of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original as well, where they're hiding and watching the people kind of walking past them. But yeah, I mean, he basically overhears them, as they say, like, you can't get far, and you'll have to sleep at some point. And you kind of feel like Matthew in that moment is like, I am kind of screwed, like he kind of knows. He's like, well, they're right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this is futile. But I love this next scene. I goddamn love this next scene, where we get Matthew going through his daily work.
Yep. He's
back in his job.
Cutting up.
He's acting emotionless. He's like
cutting up articles that we've seen him do before.
Yeah. He's like, dealing with his co-workers. He sees Elizabeth, and he does pay attention to Elizabeth every time he sees her. There is a moment where he stares a couple of times at her.
But they're also, it's such a wonderful shot when he looks into the lab, and Elizabeth is sat at some, lab equipment.
Yes.
And there are a number of other, like, scientists or whatever sort of stood around. But they're all basically just sort of stood there staring off into space.
Yeah, like they don't know what to do. And almost, well, obviously we get the big reveal in a moment, which I think is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But you almost get the feeling that maybe there's no emotion there, but maybe the pods are trying to work out why there's emotion, or why there was emotion. You know, they're like confused by it.
Yeah, I mean, they are clearly just going through the motions of of the daily life. It's again, it's that, you know, consumerism kills the soul. You know, that's just, you're now just a walking soulless thing now. Yeah, and that's what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, so ultimately, you know, Matthew goes through his daily life. We see as he leaves, we see the school buses, don't we, from different areas all coming in for conversion, which is quite gross to think about. Yep. But of course, he hears a voice in the park, and he turns around, and it's Nancy. She calls Matthew, and she crosses the street to meet him. And of course, it's the most iconic shot. It's like a meme now, isn't it? And you see Matthew's face twist, and he grimaces and screams, pointing at her, alerting obviously the pod people. And as the camera zooms into his mouth, and the whole screen just completely
breaks down.
So good, such a good shot.
Wonderful.
And of course, you know, Nancy's screwed. Like, everyone's screwed, basically.
And apparently, Veronica Cartwright didn't know.
Oh, she didn't. The actress didn't know.
Nope, she did not know that Jack was turned.
Man,
she was
they
just told.
Fucked with that actress so often. They did that with Alien as well.
Yeah.
It's just screw this. She's like, she's so naive. Just don't tell her.
Just don't tell her, yeah.
Just don't tell her. We'll scar her for life with all these film roles. We're just never going to tell her. We'll have aliens and blood everywhere.
Never trust the director ever.
We'll have this guy just scream in her face and point at her. It'd be great. Oh, man. I feel a bit sorry for her. It feels like people have played that game on her a couple of times. You think like Ridley was just like, hey, buddy, you can trick her real easy. Just give her a different script. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this movie. Such a good movie. And such a great way to end it.
Yeah, it's one of the most iconic endings of any movie. It really is.
Yeah.
And, you know, they very much like the original. So the original ending for the original movie was a happy ending because, you know, the FBI...
Because it was the 50s.
Yeah, the FBI found out. But they did have a bad ending. They had a, you know... And the book doesn't end on a bad ending. The book ends with the aliens
leaving. You said, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And but the original ending for the original movie was a more downbeat.
I feel like because the 50s version was such a communist commentary.
Yeah,
I think having the communists win in the 50s, like having it be a bad ending, is so much more 70s than it is 50s.
Although you can, I mean, a lot of the people involved with the first movie didn't know it was a communist thing. It was only really,
I guess, in hindsight, you watch it and you're like,
I think only the sort of
communists live amongst you.
Yeah, I think the director said, we kind of knew it. We kind of downplayed it, but we didn't really want to go into it too far. Yeah, and the others were like, no, we just thought we were making a really good horror movie. Basically.
Well, they were right. You know? It is a really good horror movie. And again, the first one for me is superb. I love it.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love this remake. I don't really have a favorite of the two, if I'm honest. I love both, but
I think this one edges it out for me just because of my attachment to the actors.
Yeah, the performances are superb.
As much as I love, you know, Kevin McCarthy, and I've seen him in a lot of movies. I think my attachment to Leonard Nimoy and Donald Sutherland is greater than that.
It's probably, outside of Spock, it's one of, if not Nimoy's best performance, I think. And the same with Sutherland. I think it's easily one of, if not his best performance. Like I said, it was a real toss up between this and Don't Look Now. Both superb performances.
Yeah, really wonderful performances. And they decided that they were not even going to film a good ending because they didn't want to
not give them the option.
Yeah, they didn't want to tempt the company into to going, no, we'd rather have a nice ending, so
Yeah.
just put that one on. So yeah, we're like, no, we're not going to film a good ending. This is the ending,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah. Well,
And if I remember rightly, the ending of the other two are happier.
Okay.
I think certainly in the Nicole Kidman one, I think they find an antidote for the fungus, as it were. So I think that one does have a happy ending. I can't remember the other one, whether it's sort of ambiguous or whether it's happy, but I think it's probably slightly more downbeat, actually, the third one, I should say.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, in any case, that was Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
We will be back next week with our usual review fare, Axel F and all of that stuff.
Yes.
But until then, stay safe, take care, and I will catch you next time.